David Lara asks, how do you go about building a team? It's a fantastic question. For me, naturally, like many of you, we started off by ourselves. Vivida started off with me in a bedroom. Eventually, it grew into me working with others in a team, and we still continue to grow. But it's always very difficult to try and work out how you best source and find people that suit your team so that you can continue to grow the business. It's always difficult to get that balance between running as a solo, we call it here in London and the UK a one-man band, all the way through to a team we now call Team Vivida. I started off, as many of you know, doing some small-scale corporate commercial. Then I eventually shifted over to doing weddings, and I was working in my bedroom by myself, day in, day out. But there comes a point in business where it starts to get very, very difficult when you're trying to juggle all of the different roles and responsibilities that are necessary in order to continue to maintain and to grow a business. I always had an aspiration of having something that was larger than myself. So my mind was more open to having a team and the fear and terror that would come with it. But for me, when I was editing and shooting, I would go out, I would maybe shoot a wedding and I'd bring it back and then I would edit, and then I would shoot another wedding and then I would have to edit. But gradually, everything started to compile on top of one another, where there just was not enough time in the day. Every time the telephone would ring and someone would tell me that they were interested in my services, I would really want to talk to them. But in my mind, I'd be thinking, I don't have the time to work on the business because I'm stuck working in the business, which is not always the best way to work. Eventually, I decided the best way of me alleviating some of the pressure that was on my shoulders was to bring in an editor. And that editor started off as being a freelancer, someone who I would bring in as and when I would need them. But for me, one of the things I always struggled with, and one of the things that didn't appeal to me, was starting to provide my knowledge, my ideas, my creativity to somebody else who's now working within the team as a freelancer, because then what would happen is that skill then starts to leave the business as they rub their hands together and they maybe go out and start to do things the way you taught them to do it. Right? And my aim with Vivida, myself as an individual, was to try and create work that I would aspire to and others would aspire to naturally, because that's how we bring business and maintain a business. So I then decided that what I wanted to do is I would like ideally to employ, at the time it was James, within the business so that he was mine and he belonged to the business full time, and I could then invest my time and my effort in him wholly. I also had realized that as a resource, he was always there. There's nothing like working with freelancers, which we still do regularly, and all of a sudden you take on a project, you take on a workload, and that person is unavailable. And all of a sudden you're stuck because you do not have the resources you need in order to be able to fulfill. And then that starts to affect how much business you bring in, because it kind of knocks your confidence. Businesses buy into, yes, your creativity and your skill, but they also do invest in an infrastructure, knowing that you have the ability to create on time and on budget, and to do so consistently. So in time I did employ James, and he was focusing mostly on the edits. I would give him some ideas of the way I'd want it done. He would take it to the 80% and then I would maybe go off and do the finishing touches. That would free me up to spend more time working on my business, talking to my clients, bringing in new business, looking at advertising, working on the website. But then what happened? The business grew again because I started to get involved in photography. So there I was shooting photo whilst James would do video. And as those numbers started to grow, I was then in a problem where I couldn't cope with the amount of time I was having to spend on editing the photographs. So what did I have to do? I then had to get in a photo editor. And then all of a sudden we were 3. And it started to grow on to we're now the size that we are today, which is right at this point in time, looking at Emily, I think we're about 6 or 7, including those who are outside of the business, and we're about to go and make the team even bigger. So how do you find the right people? At first it was through contacts, because as I was working and shooting, I was looking out for freelancers who I would like to work with, who I enjoyed working with. I had to make sure that they had the 3 H's. They were honest, they were humble and they were hungry. And then I would look to try and work with them consistently, and in time make sure that I was pricing my products so that I could afford to have that individual in full time. Normally employing somebody can be more cost effective than having someone as a freelancer, because what they get is they get paid for their holidays and they also get paid consistently. As a freelancer, you're not 100% sure where your work is going to come from and how long you're going to have it. But when you employ someone, they sit in a little bit more relaxed because they know day to day that they're safe. And for that, there's some calculations that you take into consideration with salaries and pricing. Then what we're able to do, as we started to grow, we were sharing work on social media. And because we were sharing work on social media and the standard was of a high standard, it meant that people would constantly contact me via email going, we would love to work with you, we would love to join your team. And that's how I then started to get other team members. I remember Marta, who used to work for Team Vivida, and she knocked on the door of my office saying, I'd seen them work online, I have some cookies here, I would love to work with you. I ate the cookies, loved her mental attitude, and then I got her in for a day, and then she never left. One of the things as you're starting out that can be really key to work out is, can you afford to employ someone who is very, very skilled, or do you need to take on somebody who doesn't yet have the skill, but they have the ability to learn? At the beginning with my wedding work, I definitely was focusing more on people who I could see potential in, and I could train them up over a period of time so they got to a good skill level. The benefit of doing that is that they understood how I wanted things done. Sometimes it was a little bit more difficult when I would bring somebody in who already had a skill set and already had their own way of working. Because then as I was trying to shift and change the way they worked, there was this bit of resistance there. And then it became the clash of the creatives. For me, I was looking for people who I could mold and I could sculpt into the type of skill set and individual that I was needing, which is why I was looking for people who were honest, humble, and hungry. But then we started to shift and change. Now as we work more in the corporate environment and we've grown up a bit, we're now looking to recruitment, whereby I'm now looking for people who are better than me at what I do. Already within the team, there are people who are better than me in certain areas. I should phrase that differently. Because it is a team, what I tend to do with those that I get involved in my business now is I'm looking for people who fill in my weaknesses. So once you understand what those weaknesses are, or maybe you understand what elements of the job you don't enjoy doing, can you find someone who is better than you in that area of weakness, or can you find someone who enjoys doing that process that you don't enjoy doing? Can you get them involved? And it frees you up to spend more time doing what you enjoy and what you are good at. So with that in mind now, we are surgically looking for people who are very, very experienced and good at what they do. I'm going down the route of reaching out through social media. So YouTube, if you're listening and you are maybe, at the moment we're specifically looking for Jordan and Emily, we're looking for those who are skilled in animation and motion graphics. So whilst we're going down the formal route of recruitment, if you are watching this video and you have a skill and you're willing to work in London, definitely type an email, get in touch. Leave a comment and we will try our best, if the vacancy's still there, to be in touch with you. But we're going to try also an agency. The downside of working with an agency is they charge an upfront fee. Typically that might be around 15%. So if a salary is 20,000 or 30,000, you can mentally work out how much money you're going to need to spend in order to bring that person in. However, the upside is that they tend to have a more consistent talent pool available where you know and trust the skill that you're going to get, all right? So I know it can be a challenge to work out, firstly, do you want to work by yourself? But there are definitely benefits to working as a team. And then if you do decide to work as a team, look for people who have got the skill set, but also the qualities that you need to work together with you in the appropriate area and in the appropriate role. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate those of you who have subscribed. If you haven't subscribed already, please click on a link that Jordan, are we going to post the link here? here, subscribe, and make sure that you follow along. Also, if you have another idea that you would like me to talk about, would you please leave a comment in the comments box below? I'm always really up for listening to your comments on the videos that we post and understanding the type of things that you would like me to speak about. See you later.